ओम स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोः स्थित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहाय। So we are coming virtually to the close of the chapter. Vedada's father's death. It was during the Durga Puja of 1843. This time Vedada was 7.5 years old. So Ramchand Bandhavadhyay invited Khudiram for the Durga Puja. So every year he spent a great deal of money on the occasion of Durga Puja. And this he performed at his ancestral home in Selampur. Of course, he gave gifts to Brahmins, fed them, and so on, etc. A number of times, Sriram had really gone there. So he was 68 years old. He thought, "Kitni baar ja paun, मालूम नहीं है." So let me go. क्योंकि धीरे धीरे उनका शरीर भी दुर्बल हो रहा था. So he was very disinclined to leave his modest cottage, क्योंकि वहां तो रघुवीर की नियमित पूजा वगैरह होता था ना. He was doing all that. So see, many people get this kind of some inclination, particularly those who are very spiritually inclined. More or less, the approaching end, they have some hint or something like that. We have seen in many cases where they clearly say, and Swamiji had clearly seen the almanac and marked it the day he would give up his body. And it has been said of many others also that way. So since Sriram was a very really spiritually inclined person, a sadhaka, इसलिए he was somehow he was feeling not comfortable leaving the house and going. Because मकान के प्रति कोई माया नहीं है. He knew because Raghuveer was there. And Raghuveer was really living for him. It was not just just image or something like that. So obviously, he was dvidha mein was again, kya karu, nahi karu. On the other hand, this person was inviting. So finally, he decided to go with his eldest son Ram Kumar and spend a few days during worship with Ramchand. First, पहले सोचा गदाधर के लिए जाओ. लेकिन गदाधर जाने में तो mother would always become anxious. So के राम कुमार के लेके गया. लेकिन वहां जाते ही he had a big attack of dysentery. So somehow Saptami, Ashtami, Nami हो गया. Then his disease took a serious turn. And उनका डॉक्टर बुलाना पड़ा, सब कुछ करना पड़ा. Somehow the fourth day also passed. षष्ठी सप्तमी अष्टमी हो गया. नौवीं दिन बहुत ही बीमार पड़े. वो भी हो गया था. दशमी में he was become so weak that he could not even speak. But still, the function was over. माँ की प्रतिमा की जो जलांजलि देना, immersion, that also happened. And then, in the meanwhile, Ramchand came to know that Shudiram was unconscious. So, इसलिए वो उनके पास आया. अश्रु विसर्जन करते करते बोला, Uncle, you have always repeated the name of Raghuveer. Why don't you do so now? The moment he heard his name of Raghuveer, suddenly he regained consciousness. It was all deep within. Yes, it was. This kind of things are seen in much in much lesser people also in that sense. One of our own Swamiji was very known to be very dynamic, very powerful, and he held many positions, and people are kind of afraid of him. Even much after his giving up all posts and all, he had commanded. So he was almost in his last days. He knew that in fact end was very, very near. So then somebody went and showed him the picture of Thakur Mahan Swamiji. এখন নয়, not now. He says. So Raghudiya. Then he went to the washroom himself. He came back and he took some Gangajal or something. Thou, give me my mala. He sat upright and did his mala and just passed away. Another senior Swami was also president of Advaita Ashram, etc. He was sick for many years in Argumore. So then he calls the attendant and says, the day he passed away, you see, तुम बाद में आओ, जब देखोगे ना मेरा कोई हिलना तुलना नहीं है, I'm not moving and anything like that, then सबको खबर दे दो. He passed away that day. So it is no wonder that Ram was feeling that he was reluctant, because he somehow had a feeling that how to leave Raghuveer and go. Because his whole life, from the time he went to Gaya, so the last 7.5, 8 years, it was completely centered around Raghuveer. So suddenly he regained consciousness. And he said, is it Ramchand? Have you come back after immersing the image? Please help me to sit up. वो भी चल रहा था. किसी तरह खुद का रोक के रखे थे. So that, the puja is, so guzar jaye to everything will be completely spoiled. So he said everything was done. And then when they said it's all over, then he knew, Nischint, abhi ja sako. Is it Ramchand? Please help me sit up. Ramchand, Himangini, and Ramkumar sat him up. Mangani is Khudiram's sister. Khudiram immediately chanted thrice the name of Raghuveer in a solemn voice and then passed away. Bhagavan ki naam lete, 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 sharir chut. I don't think one can aspire for a greater end, because it's always said, the last thought or what we do, that would determine our next birth. Because in his case, perhaps it was the last birth. So that's why, अभी तो जंटी फंटी मुंटी बहुत तरीके नाम रखते हैं, but they always used to give the names of, अब रखे तो वो भी बुलाते हैं दूसरी नाम से. कि आश्चर्य थे. They don't call by the good name. Santu, Mantu, kya, like anything, so that, in no way we would remember God. That is our best effort. But previously, चलते फिरते लड़का की बुलाते, वो है ना, that बता दें, very famous story, Ajamila, son's name was Narayana. नारायण बुलाया, स्वर्गवास हो गया. Of course, ठाकुर gives an explanation. Don't think that आप जिंदगी पर ऐसे गर्हित काम करके किसी को नाम बुला के चले जाओ, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है. He had done a lot of sadhana. That's how Thakur explained. But then, they always used to give the names of gods and goddesses to children, so that when you call them, consciously or unconsciously, you are taking the name of God. But here, he was fully conscious. He took the name of Raghuveer and gave up his body. Probably this was his last birth. So he says, see, it's all part of great cosmic scheme, no? So that the advent of an extraordinary personality would take place in his house. All the background was prepared. A person who stood completely for truthfulness. See, that's true. Thakur's life also, perhaps if you say that one great distinguishing feature which ordinary people can also relate to, is his adherence to truth. That was, you can say, many other qualities is more samadhi mein jana, all those things are different. But this adherence to truth at any cost. ऐसे नहीं कोई किसी ने बोला हाँ मैं कोशिश करूंगा, इसे दिस इज पटवारी बुद्धि, इस कैलकुलेटिंग माइंड, बताओ तुम whether it will come or not. If you say come, you have to come. ऐसे नहीं कि विंडो ओपन रख दिया, I may do or may not do. That is not truthfulness. So here he was, so probably if you ask in a worldly sense, this he is inherited from his great father, who gave up everything, all his possessions, and left empty-handed for another village. Imagine. See, those days there was nothing, a little landed property and some small house is all a large number of people in villages owned. There was no industry, there was no huge banks or bank balances or IT industry or things like that. So he had a small dwelling place and maybe a little land that with which he used to support the family. Gone completely. But still, at any cost, I will stick to truth. And he moved to another village, not knowing how it is. Of course, his friend invited, but still, an invitation, what does it mean? What is going to happen to the family? Who is going to support them? Where is the livelihood? वो तो ऐसे ही पुरोहित तो ऐसे नहीं करते थे. Whoever calls, he will go. Not like that. Only people of great character, Brahmins, if they call, then only he would go. So obviously, he did not have much of an income. Still, to live for a principle, he gave up everything. Obviously, this Atma likhte hain, thus a drop of water mingled with the ocean. Lord Raghuveer absorbed the individual life of his devotee into his infinite life, making him immortal and giving him eternal peace. During the late hours of the night, the whole village reverberated with kirtan as Chidiram's body was carried to the bank of the river and cremated. वहाँ सब उस समय भी ये संस्कार भी ऐसे ही होता है ताकि नो पूजा एक्सेट्रा इन एनी प्लेस विलेज एक्सेट्रा डिस्टर्ब. सो शाम से शुरू करते हैं, रात तक खत्म हो जाता है. So next day morning, again all households, because whoever comes, they all have to take bath and this and that. So next day they can carry on their activities. The news reached Kamarpukur the next day, plunging the once joyful family into grief. When the mourning period was over, Ramkumar performed the Shraddha for the departed father, as enjoined by the scriptures, and fed many Brahmins. He said Ramchand gave 500 rupees for the Shraddha ceremony. Probably today is worth 5 lakhs. So then we move to the boyhood of Gadadar's boyhood. Obviously, the passing of Kudiram brought a great change in the family. He was married to Chandra Devi for 44 years. She now naturally found the world to be empty without him and felt his absence every moment. See, they were not just simply gay, happy-go-lucky type of couple. No, both were intensely engaged in spiritual practice. For both of them, the only thing was Raghuveer Seva. Coupled with that, this wonderful boy would come by providence into the family and was the darling of the whole village. But still, the absence, because those days, the women used to depend so much on the husbands for everything. They can't do anything without them. They can't go out. They would never handle money. Only they would look after the household. So they were carefree and free from worry and anxiety also that way. So she was very much grief stricken. So she knew that the only Australia's self was Raghuveer, even before. Now, all the more, he started focusing very intensely on Raghuveer Seva and sadhana. So much so, no, she was almost going into the path of intense renunciation. Of course, again, when she thought of this young Gadadhar who was just 7.5 years old, and the daughter Sarvamangala was 5 years old, her mind slowly came back to family responsibilities and to the joys and sorrows of daily life. अब संसार में जब वापस आते हैं ना, आपके तो सुख दुख सब भुगतना ही पड़ता है. Grief stricken, Chandra passed her days serving Raghuveer and raising her youngest son and daughter. So now तो सारे संसार की जो भार that fell upon the shoulders of Ram Kumar, obviously, uh, he says he did not have time even to grieve. इधर तुरंत कल से क्या होगा? Because he was only eldest son of the family and the only probably male capable of earning something. Of course, he was very scholarly and he was known for his knowledge, wisdom, etc. But then he has to look after his bereaved mother, the two young siblings, and also the next brother, Ram Kumar, was 18. So he helped him first finish the Smriti and astrology so that he can also earn some money. So his wife was very efficient, finding that Chandra Devi was so much grief stricken. She took upon most of the household duties and like cooking, etc. So they say, since Maharaj writes, loss of mother in the childhood, loss of father in boyhood, and the loss of wife in youth are terrible disasters. So life would sound empty. Actually, बहुत बचपन में ज्यादा से तरह माँ की पर निर्भर है क्योंकि because small little mostly it's all physical needs when the child is too young, like milk and some food and other things, calls of nature. So lastly, so when it's extremely young children in childhood, there's more and more dependence on the mother. But as the child grows into that a little uh, more in age, say 7 years, 8 years, at that time particularly, those days, just the father occupies a central stage because several questions come to the mind. How to answer? What does this mean? What is that? And also guidance about life, about studies, for everything. So at least those days, we तो कोई किसी को बात ही नहीं सुनते हैं. That is different. But those days it was. See, every day whenever we hold a parents' workshop, the mothers with 2 year, 3-year-old children bring that type of problems. One can't even imagine. This is what my child says, Maharaj, how to handle it. But those days, life was much simpler. So obviously, when the child is 7 or 8 years old, it is more the father who takes the center stage because the child keeps on asking because it is development of the buddhi. At a very young age, it's only the physicality of life, how to manage life. But at a little older age, it's more related to the intellect. So, how to understand, how to figure out what to do, how to solve the problems, how to take a decision. So, naturally, uh, the if the boy loses his father during this period, he feels a terrible emptiness. This happened to Gadadhar when he lost his father. Every day, various small things would remain Gadadhar of his father's absence, making his heart heavy with sorrow. Because his heart and intellect were more developed than those of other boys of his age, he did not express his grief. So बाकी लोग सोच रहे थे ऐसे गदार तो ठीक ही है, पैसे बहुत खुश है, आनंद में इधर उधर जाता है आता है, इज रोमिंग अबाउट happily as before, but he never let anyone know. Moreover, of course, उनका there are two small burial grounds there in Kamarpur. भूतिर काल एक है, दूसरे ये भूतिर काल में उसको कई बार लोग देखते थे साकिरा वहाँ घूम रहा है, and also in Manik Raja, in Amra Kanan में, in solitary places. Actually, the mind that is given to contemplation, the mind that is given to seeking something higher, that such a mind will only seek solitude. No? For most of us, solitude is a terrible, terrible problem. Fear. Can't be alone. Even for a couple of minutes, then otherwise keep on telephoning, something or other to keep us engaged. Being alone, that itself is a great sadhana, tapasya. So solitude, when would one enjoy solitude? When only the mind is quiet, it is given to contemplation, given to meditation, given to higher pursuits, given to deeper ideas and all that, such a mind. But obviously he was extremely uh, endowed with all these qualities. So it was his natural drift to seek solitude. Gadadhar became reflective and began to love solitude. And he also began to study the lives and behavior of the people around him. Because all his education, it was all because of his power of observation. Already hardly read anything, but he was rich and full of wisdom in a very practical sense, because he was such a keen observer. Everything he would notice. And if you see all his examples which he later on gave in his life, mostly in Katham, so all from ordinary daily life incidents. वो हमेशा जो घटता था गांव में, वही ऐसे वो देखते थे, उनका नजर उसमें चला जाता था. He could simply recall and give a beautiful spiritual drift to them. All unimaginable. How the woman who is asking Paddy, she's breastfeeding her child, she's handling customers, but she's doing everything, but she's extremely careful so that the one that is breaking the dhan or that grain, that should not fall on her hand. So he says, do everything, but always remember God. See how such telling examples, if you listen once, all your life you will not forget. Just taken, lifted from a village scene, and then applied in a very beautiful spiritual sense. Would anyone can ever connect it like that? Because he has connected, we are able to repeat. But originally, if you see from such a village, in even anything he observes, immediately he will give a spiritual drift. Here, really, some of the things, of course, uh, in a normal way, we can't repeat. They are so special. But still, if you see every one of his the incidents he would quote or the examples, they are very unique. So that's why the Kadambat is such a highly readable book that way. He became, and then uh, because both he and his mother had suffered such a terrible loss, he became more close to her because he saw she was suffering. So he would spend more time with her, help her in all her chores, etc. So that, she almost forgot her grief and emptiness. So he would never make any demands on her. Imagine a 7.5 or 8-year-old child resolving not to make any demand on her mother. Because the whole material was different, no? It was special. So obviously you could understand that was his greatness. You would understand the other person's needs. That is why you could mold Girish Ghosh that way. Any other normal person would have done with Girish Ghosh very differently. Would have given maybe if he was compassionate, would have given him great spiritual lessons, all right. That was different. But I don't think anybody would have been able to mold him because of his capacity to really understand the other person and move accordingly. See, so much so when Girish Ghosh came, He had come almost drunk. जब आया, ने बोला देखो गाड़ी में बोतल छोड़ के आया, अभी टूटेगा उसका लेके आओ. Imagine that. See, that is why, he endeared himself so much to Girish Ghosh. I mean, unimaginable way. In fact, much of the spread of the Ramakrishna Sharda movement, his ideas, we owe so much to Girish Ghosh. He was the person who was so emphatic about Holy Mother. Boldly he would go declare it. Nobody understood anything about Holy Mother before that he understood. Because of course his own personal experience, how Mother helped him, how she revealed to him later on and all that. It was all there, but still he was so bold. He was a bohemian all right before, but then once he turned a leaf, he became such a strong devotee. So because Thakur understood him, how to mold him, putting him oneself in other person's shoes and trying to experience. That is why, he could completely assuage somebody's grief like that. When Manilal came after cremating his son who was 21 years old, he had no clue. He was simply sitting dumbfolded in his in Dakshineshwar. Slowly he went, and then he says, yes, after all, his Atmaja he has come out of you. Will you not feel the grief? He made him feel, he clearly says, I know that nobody else could have wiped out this grief of mine except you. That's why I came straight from cremation ground. So he understood that these are all from childhood, boyhood, these traits were all clearly observed in Sri Ramakrishna. So he always felt that he should protect his mother. And this remained even when he had really advanced in spiritual life. As she had come and she was staying in Dakshineshwar, mother was serving her, and he went to Vrindavan and pilgrimage. Ganga Mai said, "Aap yahan hi raho." He also liked, she was such a great sadhika. Unki ghar pe alag, there were 2 carts were arranged, everything was decided. She was pulling him on her side. Ritu was pulling me. Ritu to जानते हैं चले जाए तो मेरा तो खाना पीना क्या होगा? If Thakur goes, I am gone. So he was pulling for worldly reasons. And Ganga Mai was pulling him because she saw that virtual embodiment of Radha in itself, like that here is a person. Then suddenly he remembered his mother. माँ वनावत में रहती हैं. Immediately, see, even a person of such extraordinary spiritual eminence, Avatara himself, God incarnated on earth. See, imagine the place that is given to Mother in our culture, in our tradition. So if you think that unless I am also allowed to go out at night 1 o'clock, there is no equality, there is no gender equality. These are all the things we are talking about. What people are demanding by way of freedom. You also go as you like, I will also go as I like. That is called equality, that is called gender equality, and that's called freedom, that's called what we want to do. Society, it was so organized because people had specific duties. There was nothing like high or low. Your job is to go and earn money. My job is to. So it will be parent teacher. If I ask, are you also working? Then half of the problems are because of that. See, at a very young age, if the child is left to the care of a third person and all, obviously, obviously there will be a lot of maladjustments, problems, psychological issues. But he was extremely oriented towards his mother and always felt like protecting her. So he was, of course, he was just going to school, but then his favorite activities were listening to the recital of the Puranas, because it's all from where he gathered a lot of knowledge which would come very handy later on. All Puranas, dramatic performances, and sculpting during the daytime images of gods and goddesses, because he was a great sculptor. That is what really attracted Mathur Babu to him. The moment he made a Shiva image, Mathur was watching, he was stunned. Can anyone do like this? chest with hands, just like that. No, no, no. ये पूजा करे तो माँ सचमुच जग जाएगी. See, there was also Jamindar capable of all kinds of crimes. But then, see their najar. See, we always think that people are only wicked and this and that. But in and through that also, they see today, everything is because of Mathurba only. Na? He is the person who brought Sri Ramakrishna to do puja. Otherwise, he would have lived like that. Maybe he would have gone back to Kamarpukur or done something else. Because you can always say there is a divine will, there's a cosmic compulsion and cosmic design. Everything is all right. But there is also an existential side to it. ना? अब व्यवहारिक जगत की दृष्टि से भी तो देखना है. अब उसी से देखें. We go everything to. We should make in all our temples. We should make a small image for Mathur Babu because उन्होंने पहले spot किया. He was the first person. Not even his mother or father or Ramkumar or nobody. They all knew he's a very extraordinary child. But here is a person who really spotted that this person will awaken the mother. And there, the whole secret, the whole essence, the entire importance, the significance of this Ramakrishna movement lies there. He brought him, not only mother was awakened, he also, all his intense sadhana. The first 12 years centered around Mother Kali. That is all his main sadhana. Afterwards is all just three days. Whatever, whosoever comes, anything you come, no problem. 3 days more than enough. Highest Nirvikalpa Samadhi. All according to Vaishnava Sastra, Santra Sastras, Christianity, Islam, anything. But that initial, that foundation, that intense sadhana as if he's an ordinary person, weeping, intense vyakulata, rolling. Everything started with Mathurnath spotting him and bringing him to the temple, forcing him to accept the responsibility without the burden of looking after the ornaments, etc. The mother, you come and do puja. Do as you like. No rules, no regret. Can you imagine in those days someone doing a puja in a Kali temple to the Vigraha, which was formally done Pratishtha? Pratishtha with all formalities, huge function, every type of formality was observed. After Pratishtha with such a image, one of the, just 2 years after that, someone coming and doing, see, 56 was the dedication. And right from that time, Ramkumar had to assume the responsibility also. Immediately within a few months, Gadadhar came. Probably he was the first or the second pujari. And he was, asked to do as he likes. No rule, no regulation, no naivedya, anything he would. Mother's offerings, he would feed a cat. So, these are all not normal things, and it's very clear that every little incident of Sri Ramakrishna's life is strewn with some extraordinary happening, incident, attitude, great truth. Something is revealed through all this. Everything needs to be understood in depth, and only we can understand even a little of Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play. So he started reading and he was doing sculpting during daytime. And then this probably helped him to forget the loss of his father. So it seems, the Laha family, they were very rich and very charitable also. They had built a rest house for pilgrims and ascetics stopped there on their way to Puri. That is, probably from Kolkata to Puri, the route lay via this place. So, they would come and stop there. So, naturally, Gadadhar was seeing the transitiveness of the world, with the loss of his father and whatever is happening. So, of course, from the Puranas also, he had heard that the monks renounce the world for God realization. So, and also the holy company is capable of giving peace. So he started going there to meet the monks. once in a way. Obviously, he saw how they lighted the dhuni and how they sat around it absorbed in meditation, and how they offered to their chosen deity whatever they simple food they got by begging, and afterwards took it as prasada. All that was, were deeply influencing him. He also noticed that some hypocrites in monastic garb enjoyed selfish pleasures. That also he saw. उस समय से this people taking to this garb also to cheat and all that was prevalent then also. If you go to Uttarkashi, many of the refugees from Bangladesh are all wearing girwan daily taking bhiksha. क्योंकि साज में मिल जाता है वहाँ जो भी आप पहनो तो ड्रेस खड़ा हो जाओ सेठ जी लगाया छत्र लगाया बस जाओ सो दे टेक 2 times इजीली कहाँ से घर भी मिल जाता है नहीं तो छत्र में रहो कंबल फंबल उड़ा के वहाँ सो जाओ रात see no job nothing no at least the whole family lives like that anyway so he began to associate with genuine monks and help them by providing some service साधु लोग तो पानी लेके जाना कुछ ये करना काट जुगाड़ करना firewood for the dhuni etc so they also taught him prayer and devotional songs and gave him some spiritual instructions and kabhi kabhi prasad bhi dete the she was very happy so he was going very regularly but particularly with those who stayed for longer period उस समय तो ऐसे कोई ही नहीं था ना आज ही सुबह निकलना है प्लेन पकड़ के जाना है शाम को अंदर आना है फिर अगले दिन बाद इट वाज द रूटीन वाज नॉट लाइक दैट यहाँ जाते हैं बस 1 महीने 2 महीने रहो फिर अगले चलो हाँ सो lamta sadhu no problem wherever their feet would take they will go they will stay there was no compulsion no has to do it within this time or that time like that they had a very uh, very free life that way so he was now 8 years old some stayed for a long time some of the sadhus he became their favorite so उनका पहले तो परिवार कुछ नहीं बोलते थे देवर ने तो साधु के पास जा रहे हैं अच्छा है वो सेवा करें but suddenly he saw that वहाँ इतना समय रहा कि वहाँ ही खा के आता था घर पे कुछ नहीं खाता था the first symbol when you don't eat at home something has happened so one of our great swamis was the president of the ashrama but he would come regularly to the Pangat he'll observe watch so some senior swami is not taking but because Maharaj would question is nibbling why are you starting did he eat outside today he would immediately catch बाहर जाके कुछ खा के आया ऐसे पूछते because he was busy absorbed in his studies and he had no time but Pangat he will catch why he's not eating today well, like so घर पहले कि ये हुआ अरे तो नहीं ले रहे हैं वहाँ खा के आया not there and one suddenly one day appeared with all विभूति भूषित वो आगे दूसरे दिन अपना कपड़ा फाड़ के yet put on the cloth like coping and देखो माँ मैं कैसे सजा तो they became terribly afraid साधु लोग लेके चले जाएंगे those days now also that fear is there sometimes sadhus kidnap children and take away and all तो उनका बिल्कुल मना किया नहीं तुम नहीं जा सकते हो जरूरत नहीं है she became extremely alarmed and she said no you don't have to go there then he said yes मैं तो बिल्कुल नहीं जाऊंगा बोला लेकिन बिफोर दैट अंतिम बार जाके विदाई लेके आ जाऊं कहने को इतना प्यार करते थे ये ऑल्सो यूज्ड टू सर्व देम कैसे सोचेंगे उन लोग तो ही वेंट देयर टू टेक लीव इसे नहीं मैं कल से नहीं आऊंगा बोला क्यों क्या हुआ he said no you see my mother is very apprehensive then उन लोग बोला नहीं क्या बात है we will come so they came to their house and assured Chinda Devi हम लोग का ऐसा बिल्कुल कोई परिकल्पना नहीं है we are not even dreaming of any such thing and moreover it's a sin to take away such a small child. You'll never do like that. Then when they assured her, she said, all right, daughter. Then she was again allowed to go. And then you see the, of course, we have already discussed, maybe later on, if it is koi baat hoga. Actually, when such extraordinary personalities like Avatar, etc., during their advent on earth, it is not that from boyhood itself or from childhood itself, it's all only alauki. ऐसा होता नहीं. Largely, they try to follow the normal norms of life, जैसे होता है. So that there's always uh, uh, there is a trace of normalcy in that life. But in spite of that, you can't. How can you contain such powerful personalities in this within the borders or boundaries of earthly existence? Sambhav hi nahi. See, it's not that if you're surcharged with something, it's all inside, waiting just to be unearthed, or it's going to burst forth at some point of time, as it did in the Thakur's life, just after his first experience. Afterwards, it's a torrential flow, you can say, afterwards. Initially, but then, it is not that. They don't transition from complete worldliness to complete spirituality. ऐसा भी नहीं होता है. एक है, ऐसा नहीं है. बचपन से बहुत सारे अलौकिक है, एकदम भगवान दर्शन होता जाता है हर रोज, always immersed in samadhi from day one. Not like that. At the same time, not that they were totally worldly, doing like others, and suddenly one day they became. No, it's also not. It's a very small transitionary stage. इसलिए बचपन में कभी कभी ऐसा कुछ भी होता है, where later on, probably in hindsight, now everybody is able to connect the dots. बचपन से कैसे हुआ, कैसे उनको इससे पहले अनुभूति कैसी हुई. So everything is now in relation to his later development, the extraordinary spiritual dimension he exhibited later on. When they look back at his childhood, boyhood, etc., now they are able to understand. This is how he came. This is how he developed. This is how his spirituality unfolded slowly. All that are slowly understood. So again, like that, he left his home along with others. So there was one Visalakshi temple in Anur. Now also our devotees, whenever they go to Kamarpur, they go. It was a very typical village temple. And then they were people used to go and कुछ व्रत करते थे, इसलिए जाते थे. Many of the, mostly women used to go, and there used to be, it was surrounded by, it was a very famous temple by the village, the cowherds, the boys, they did, बस ही कुछ नहीं करते थे, वही वहाँ बैठ रहते थे. इसलिए मंदिर always used to be open. जो भी चढ़ाओ वही बच्चे लोग ले लेते थे. They used to do everything. I did not even have a proper big roof and all that. It was practically like that. Then somebody thought that no, I should build a nice temple. He tried and the whole thing collapsed. It developed such cracks, they had to demolish it. क्योंकि माँ वैसी चाहती थी, मैं ऐसे ही सहज ढंग से गांव में मैं रहूंगा. This is one roof. Not that we have built a very beautiful temple, but a very big one in Daksheshwar, so decorated and all that. But this is also another room. So this is just at home with all the village boys. They would like that. So mother also in Calcutta should always put on the veil and should be extremely restricted. Nobody can meet. The men devotees can't come anywhere near her. Through an interpreter only she would talk. She won't even talk directly. People have quite often to do pranam from below, can't even go above. All that were there. But Jarapati में एकदम should be free. एक घंटा नहीं लगाती थी. She was always, people could meet and talk to her more freely. ऐसी कभी ऐसी कोई ब्रह्मचारी सेवक बहुत ही ऐसी जबरदस्ती कर रहा था. समय पे मिले. No, we have to go this time. We have to be prepared. We have to take food. and leave so that we cross such and such. बहुत विरक्त हुए ऐसा छाड़ तुम छेड़ दाओ ऐसा don't विरक्त करो ना, don't disturb me like this. Here at least I am free. Don't make it like Calcutta. These are all village people. They have their own difficulties. They can't stick to your timing and all that. Whenever it is ready, only we will take. Don't force them. She became annoyed. So in this Visalakshi temple, he was going. Then, on the way, one of his companions, the person, he fell to the ground unconscious. उसमें उनका क्या, क्योंकि the village women, they were all singing mothers' songs, etc. and going. The atmosphere was so surcharged. So even in that, even before going and having that darshan, on the way itself, he was so much overwhelmed with that feeling of the mother, he fell unconscious. So everybody became very much worried. And then Prasannamai, the daughter of Dharamdas Laha, realized that lost external consciousness due to spiritual ecstasy. But when Chandradevi was told what had happened, she did not believe Prasanna. Prasanna was actually one of the very few. Later on, she was so supportive of the mother also during her terrible days of tapasya and tapa in Kamarpur. It was Prasanna who stood by her. She was very, very, very spiritually oriented from that time. She clearly saw that it is not an ordinary fainting. It's he has been overcome by a spiritual mood or bhava, and that is how he had lost external consciousness. See, I mean, if you put it in a very blunt language, what happens in such occasions? See, as long as what is our relation to this world? It's all our senses. Indri ki madhyami hum log jude hue. So that's why we are alert, we are talking, we are seeing, we are moving, we are doing everything, and 10 things are going to be there because all our indriyas are puri tarah sakriya hai. बहुत करते रहते हैं. But the moment you go to your transcendental plane, you are completely cut off from all indriyas. So your connection with the world completely snaps. When you lose complete connection with the external world, you have to see, of course, in a very ordinary way, if you compare it, what happens during anesthesia? All your indriyas are virtually shut because of that injection. It's a forceful external thing, physical thing, still that medicine. So your eyes, ears, then you don't see, you don't hear, nothing is happening. So you lose contact with the world. So if the same thing happens spontaneously by one's spiritual sadhana, when one can shut all your indriyas, then you go to an atindriya jagat where there is no play of the indriyas. What will you react with? What will you see? What will you hear? Nothing. So when the external contact with the world snaps, the person becomes totally either unconscious or falls down because he was very young. But later on, when it goes into it, like a log of wood, no sign of anything. Many times, Mahendra Sarkar used to try to put his finger to see. Even he could touch the eyeballs. Is it ever possible? Absolutely no contact. When Tadapati initiated him for 3 days and 3 nights, like absolutely like a log of wood, he was sitting. Because there is no contact there. So, but Chandra Devi became very worried because like a normal mother, she was worrying. She said that she did not believe Prasanna. Again, the only thing those days they could think was some epileptic fit. And then anyway, the seizure or something had happened. Therefore, Gadadhar, this time as before, Gadadhar said that he had become unconscious because his mind had merged in the goddess as he was contemplating. So he said earlier, when he saw the flock of white cranes crossing the deep black crowds, when he had the contrast with the nature, that first brought him the first ecstasy. Now he told her another. Then also he said, I was so full of bliss. Now he says, just because I was contemplating on the mother, the mind had merged and that's why I had become unconscious. Anyway, perhaps they also saw that he was again normal as before, so did not worry further, and that is how he continued. So we can continue next week. In the meanwhile, since we have this facility, if anyone wants to ask any question, you can ask either in the Google Meet, those who are in the Meet, or anyone sitting here. Otherwise, we do our Shanti part and we meet next week. Huh? Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tatsat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.